Welcome to today's Explainer. We are diving deep down into the basement to talk about a real workhorse. I'm talking about the hardworking, completely unsung hero of your below-grade plumbing system, the sewage ejector pump. Now, we all know water goes down the drain easily enough, right? But what on earth happens when it needs to go up? Let's break down exactly how this device works, why it fails, and the actionable steps you can take to prevent a really messy disaster.
Here is our roadmap for this explainer. We'll start with Section 1, the unsung hero below. Then 2, common causes of failure. 3, your routine maintenance guide. 4, red flags and warnings. And finally, 5, best practices for longevity.
All right, Section 1, the unsung hero below, what it is and why it matters.
So, what exactly are we dealing with here? A sewage ejector pump is specifically designed to move wastewater from below-grade spaces up and out to a main sewer or septic line. It is literally doing this heavy-duty, gravity-defying job of handling solids and raw waste just so your lower-level plumbing functions seamlessly.
Now, I absolutely love this insight from the source material. It says, because they handle solids, variable flow, and sometimes corrosive conditions, they can't safely set and forget. This completely busts the massive homeowner misconception that these hidden systems don't require any attention once they're installed. Handling raw solids creates a really harsh environment, and that inherently demands your attention.
Moving right along to Section 2, common causes of failure, or the villains of the system.
When this unsung hero does break down, it almost always falls into one of two broad categories. It's either clogging or it's electrical and mechanical wear. And honestly, it's actually kind of a relief to know that pump failure isn't usually some unpredictable, unsolvable mystery. It's highly preventable.
So let's look at the specific debris building up in the pump, the check valve, or the discharge line. The primary culprits here are hair, grease, sediment, and literally the worst offender of them all, wipes. Yes, even those wipes that boldly claim to be flushable on the packaging. Trust me, they simply do not break down fast enough for an ejector pump. They just wrap around the impellers, choke the system, and drastically raise your risk of a full-on backup.
That brings us to Section 3, your routine maintenance guide. Let's open the maintenance playbook.
Routine checks basically come down to a really clean 3-step sequence. Step 1, inspect and clean the accessible parts to remove any visual debris. Step 2, verify the float or level sensors. If these things get stuck, your pump just won't cycle correctly. And Step 3, check the discharge path for blockages. Following this sequence just ensures the mechanical triggers and the physical pathways are communicating properly. And beyond just clearing out clogs, ensuring long-term reliability means keeping an eye out for electrical issues and mechanical wear. Monitor the wiring for any signs of overheating, check your pump seals, and inspect those impellers for physical wear. Crucially, if your system actually has a high water alarm, test it regularly based on the manufacturer's specs. That's how you catch wear and tear early on.
A really important insight here is determining exactly when to do this maintenance. Think about it. A low-occupancy, quiet home requires a vastly different cadence than a multi-unit building or a heavily used property. Your property's specific usage volume should completely dictate how tight your routine maintenance schedule needs to be.
Let's shift gears to Section 4, red flags and warnings. This is when to call for backup.
I want you to ask yourself, is your pump trying to tell you something right now? Because look, even with the best maintenance in the world, hardware degrades over time. The real trick is catching the symptoms of failure before the entire system just completely gives out on you.
You need to watch your drains for these critical red flags. We're talking persistent odors near the system, weird gurgling sounds in your nearby drains, slower than usual drainage, repeated short cycling, or any visible moisture pooling around the pump housing. If you notice any of these, it means immediate service is required, long before you face the ultimate sign of failure, which is a full raw sewage backup.
Now, if you do spot those severe red flags, please remember that raw sewage introduces very serious health risks. Troubleshooting deep blockages or messing with internal electrical components is absolutely a job for qualified pros. Do not risk your own health trying to dig around in a literal biohazard. Finally, we have Section 5, best practices for longevity. Let's talk about protecting your hero.
Keeping this system running is so much easier when the pump isn't being forced to work beyond its design. Everyday protection simply means avoiding flushing items that won't break down, heavily limiting grease and food waste, and just making sure your fixtures drain normally to avoid overloading the system. And of course, when in doubt, consult the manual or a licensed installer.
So I'll leave you with this final thought. Will you maintain your system proactively on your own schedule, or are you going to wait for a messy, chaotic sewage backup to force your hand? Proactive care saves you time, it saves you money, and it prevents a truly terrible mess in your home. Thanks for joining me for today's explainer, and keep learning.